Leo Tolstoy appeared to have attained everything a person could desire: fame, fortune, and literary acclaim that ensured his name would be remembered for generations. His masterpieces, War and Peace and Anna Karenina, were hailed as some of the greatest novels ever written. Yet, beneath this seemingly perfect existence, a profound crisis gnawed at him. He could not silence the relentless question that tormented his soul. If life ultimately ends in death, then what is its true purpose? This was not a fleeting thought, but a consuming dread that darkened his every moment. Each day, he awoke with a feeling of futility, questioning whether any achievement, love, or recognition could hold meaning when all would eventually fade. He likened existence to a man dangling from a precarious branch above an abyss, desperately avoiding the beast of mortality lurking below. His triumphs felt hollow, and no worldly success could quell the growing emptiness within. Why did a man who had seemingly gained everything still feel as though he had nothing? This deep existential doubt was not unique to Tolstoy. It resonates with countless individuals who achieve their dreams only to find that fulfillment remains elusive. Determined to find an answer, Tolstoy immersed himself in philosophy, searching through the works of great thinkers for insight. He explored the writings of Plato, Nietzsche, and Pascal, dissecting theories on existence, morality, and consciousness. However, rather than finding clarity, his despair only deepened. Intellectual reasoning reduced life to mere biological processes, bound by indifferent natural laws. He wrestled with the idea that if nothing lasted, then perhaps nothing mattered. No philosophical argument provided comfort. Instead, each new perspective reinforced the absurdity of existence. If everything would one day be forgotten, what was the point of striving at all? The more he pondered, the more he felt trapped in an unsolvable paradox. His mind became a battlefield where logic and hope waged war, each refusing to yield. The weight of his thoughts led him to a terrifying conclusion. If life lacked meaning, then the only rational response was despair. At his lowest, Tolstoy confessed that he feared the temptation of self-destruction. He avoided ropes and weapons, knowing how easily his thoughts could drive him toward irreversible action. Yet, something within him resisted. There had to be an answer, something beyond mere reason. But where could it be found if intellect had failed him? Seeking clarity, he turned his attention to the simple people, the farmers, laborers, and villagers who toiled without wealth or status. To his astonishment, these individuals, who lived without recognition or intellectual pursuits, seemed far more content than he was. They did not wrestle with existential questions. They lived with quiet purpose. They found meaning not in achievements but in their daily rituals, their faith, and their relationships. Tolstoy could not ignore the stark contrast between their peace and his torment. How could people with so little feel so complete? Their existence defied the intellectual conclusion that life was meaningless. They had no need for grand philosophical justifications. They simply embraced the experience of living. Tolstoy began to wonder, was the pursuit of meaning itself the very thing preventing him from finding it? He had sought purpose through intellect, yet here were people who had never pondered life's deepest questions, and they had found contentment. Could it be that meaning was not something to be discovered through reason, but something that emerged naturally through living? The more he observed, the clearer it became. These people were not enslaved by the need for absolute certainty. They accepted the mysteries of life, embraced suffering, and lived for something greater than themselves, whether it was faith, love, or community. Unlike him, they were not paralyzed by the fear of death, for they believed in something beyond their own existence. He saw that meaning did not need to be proven or justified. It needed to be lived. For years, he had demanded logical explanations for the purpose of life, but now he understood that meaning was not found in theory. It was woven into action, connection, and surrender. This realization did not arrive as a sudden revelation, but as a gradual transformation. The more he immersed himself in the lives of ordinary people, the more he saw that true fulfillment did not stem from personal achievement, but from the simple act of embracing life itself. He had spent years chasing intellectual enlightenment, yet the wisdom he sought had been in front of him all along. This newfound understanding changed Tolstoy forever. He realized that the greatest illusion was not meaninglessness, but the belief that meaning had to be absolute and unchanging. Life did not require a grand justification to be valuable. Its worth lay in love, in connection, in the quiet moments of joy and struggle that made up human existence. With this shift in perspective, he abandoned the relentless pursuit of external success and turned his focus inward. His journey was far from over, but now, instead of chasing illusions, he sought a deeper, more authentic way of living. He had once believed that happiness would be found in recognition and achievement, but now he understood that true peace came from within. The world was filled with people running endlessly, believing that the next victory, the next accolade, the next milestone would finally bring them satisfaction. But Tolstoy saw the truth. Meaning was never something to be attained. It was something to be lived, moment by moment, in the simple embrace of the present. Tolstoy had come to suspect a painful truth. The pursuits society glorifies may not be the ones that truly bring meaning to life. Determined to find an answer, he turned to his natural instinct, analysis. If his own accomplishments had failed to provide meaning, perhaps the collective achievements of humanity could offer clarity. He examined civilization's greatest milestones: art, science, philosophy, and politics, searching for a common thread that justified existence. Yet, the more he delved into these grand contributions, the more he saw their limitations. Science could explain the mechanics of the universe, but it could not answer why it existed. Art could capture beauty and suffering, but it could not resolve the fundamental absurdity of life. Philosophy questioned reality, but no philosopher had ever provided a definitive answer to the tormenting question: why live if all ends in death? Even morality, the supposed foundation of human ethics, seemed powerless before the inevitability of mortality. If every civilization crumbled, if every human effort eventually faded into dust, was it all just an elaborate distraction from the void? Tolstoy realized that even history's greatest minds had faced the same abyss, and none had conquered it. Some accepted life's absurdity and carried on indifferently. Others drowned themselves in fleeting pleasures. But these responses did not satisfy him. He did not seek comfort. He wanted truth. And the truth, as he saw it, was terrifying. Human progress had given knowledge, power, and art, but it had not given meaning. If neither personal success nor the achievements of civilization could provide the answer, where else was there to look? Tolstoy turned his attention to those around him. His peers, the intellectuals, the artists, the aristocrats. Many lived in quiet despair, though few admitted it openly. Some numbed their emptiness with indulgence, others with ceaseless distractions. Yet beneath their refined exteriors lay an unspoken truth. They were just as lost as he was. He saw it in fellow writers, men who had secured literary immortality yet lived in anxiety, fearing their next work would not measure up. He saw it in noblemen who owned vast estates yet drifted through life in a haze of excess and boredom. He saw it in scholars who prided themselves on intellect but found no real joy in their discoveries. These were individuals who had everything that society deemed valuable: wealth, prestige, admiration. Yet they wandered through life as if searching for something they could never quite grasp. The most frightening realization was that many had stopped searching altogether. They had accepted their emptiness as the natural state of existence and resigned themselves to it. Tolstoy, however, refused to do the same. He could not accept that life was merely an elaborate performance, that the only options were distraction or despair. If there was no meaning in success, then meaning had to exist somewhere else. But where? In his growing desperation, he began to look beyond the world of privilege. If wealth and recognition had failed to provide answers, perhaps the truth lay with those who lived outside the illusions of status. His gaze shifted to the working class: farmers, laborers, craftsmen. These were people who, by all logic, should have been even more tormented than he was. They had none of the luxuries, none of the status, none of the recognition that he had spent his life accumulating, yet they were not consumed by existential despair. They did not wake each morning paralyzed by the thought of death. They did not seem to wrestle with the same agonizing questions that haunted him. Instead, they moved through life with a quiet acceptance, a peace that even the most celebrated minds of Tolstoy's generation failed to attain. The contrast was undeniable. Why did those with knowledge and privilege suffer from existential dread, while those with so little lived with certainty? What did these simple people understand that the intellectual elite did not? This realization marked a turning point in Tolstoy's journey. The answer to his search was not in grand achievements, in the accumulation of knowledge, or in social prominence. It was hidden in a place he had never thought to look. And so, determined to uncover the secret these people carried, he immersed himself in their lives. He observed them, listened to their stories, and tried to understand their way of seeing the world. In the simplicity of their existence, in the rhythms of their labor, in their unshaken faith, he began to see something he had missed all along. Meaning was not something to be discovered through intellectual analysis. It was something to be lived. And for the first time in his life, Tolstoy saw a path forward. The journey was not over, but at last, he had found the direction he had been seeking all along. For years, Tolstoy wandered through the corridors of human thought, seeking meaning in the pages of literature, the theories of philosophy, the discoveries of science, and the expressions of art. He explored the wisdom of history's greatest minds, hoping to unearth an answer profound enough to justify the very act of existence. Yet, despite his relentless pursuit, he found himself staring into an abyss of unresolved questions. Intellectuals debated with intricate logic, artists painted their souls onto canvases, scientists measured the mysteries of nature, but none addressed the haunting question that had taken root in his mind. If everything ends in death, what is the purpose of life? Disillusioned by the failure of scholarly thought to provide solace, Tolstoy turned his gaze toward a world he had previously ignored. The lives of ordinary people, the laborers, the villagers, those who toiled each day without the luxury of questioning existence. These individuals, untouched by the weighty tomes of philosophy or the grand discussions of intellectual salons, carried within them an undeniable peace. They lived, they worked, they endured hardship, and yet they seemed unburdened by the existential despair that had consumed Tolstoy's soul. It puzzled him. How could those with so little knowledge possess such a deep understanding of life? How did they rise each morning with a quiet sense of purpose when the world he knew was drowning in uncertainty and doubt? What secret did they hold that he had failed to grasp? Initially, Tolstoy assumed their peace stemmed from ignorance, that they simply did not possess the intellectual tools to question their own existence. But as he observed them more closely, a different truth emerged. These people were not ignorant of life's mysteries. They were immersed in them. Their understanding was not one of words and theories, but of action and experience. Tolstoy spent time with the farmers who labored under the open sky, the blacksmiths whose hands shaped metal with unspoken skill, the mothers who nurtured life with a quiet resilience. These people did not question the meaning of existence because they lived it. A shepherd did not debate whether life had purpose. He simply guided his flock through the fields. A mother did not doubt the existence of love. She demonstrated it daily in the tenderness with which she held her child. A fisherman did not ask if his work mattered. He simply cast his net, trusting in the rhythm of the tides. Their wisdom was not carved into books or taught in universities. It was woven into the fabric of their everyday lives. They found meaning not in abstract ideas, but in the tangible, in the cycles of nature, in their duties, in their relationships. While scholars argued about the purpose of life, these people lived it, embracing the simplicity and inevitability of existence with a quiet, unwavering strength. Yet, there was something else, something deeper that connected them all, a belief in something greater than themselves. Whether through faith, tradition, or an intuitive trust in the universe, these people lived with an innate sense of belonging to a grander whole. Tolstoy had long dismissed religion as a relic of the past, a construct for those unwilling to face the harsh truths of reality. He had viewed faith as a crutch, a comforting illusion for those unable to endure the weight of existence without divine reassurance. But now, as he watched these people, he saw faith not as an escape but as a foundation. They were not clinging to belief out of fear, but embracing it as a way of life. Their faith was not the result of elaborate theological debates or philosophical proofs. It was as natural to them as the air they breathed. It gave them the strength to endure suffering, the courage to face uncertainty, and the ability to find joy in even the smallest of moments. They did not wrestle with meaning because, in their eyes, life itself was sacred. Existence was not a problem to be solved. It was a gift to be lived. And for the first time, Tolstoy began to wonder if he had been searching in the wrong places all along. This realization shattered the foundation upon which he had built his understanding of the world. He had believed that truth could only be found through reason, through the careful dissection of knowledge. But now he saw another form of wisdom, one that could not be written down or debated, only lived. The answers he had sought in books had been present all along in the simple lives of those he had once overlooked. Meaning was not an intellectual puzzle to be unraveled. It was something woven into the very act of being. He saw that the people he had once considered uneducated were, in fact, the keepers of life's greatest truth, that peace comes not from seeking endlessly, but from surrendering to the flow of life. He had spent years trying to construct meaning through thought, only to find that it was never meant to be constructed at all. It was meant to be felt, experienced, embraced. The simplicity that had once seemed primitive to him now appeared profound. Purpose was not hidden in abstract reasoning, but in the rhythm of daily life, in love, in connection, in duty. And so, Tolstoy stood on the precipice of transformation. He had sought meaning in wealth, in status, in intellectual conquest, only to find them hollow. He had turned to history's greatest thinkers, hoping to extract from them a truth that would justify existence, but none had succeeded in lifting the veil of despair from his heart. Yet, in the unassuming lives of the laborers, the peasants, and the devoted, he found an answer he had never considered. The search for meaning was not about grasping at something distant and elusive. It was about recognizing what had always been present. The philosophers had dissected life in an attempt to define it, but the people he now admired had simply lived it, and in doing so, they possessed a peace he had never known. The revelation was not complex, nor was it grand. It was as simple as the rising sun, as steady as the seasons, as fundamental as love itself. For the first time in his life, Tolstoy saw that the meaning of existence was not something to be hunted like a hidden treasure, but something to be embraced in the quiet, unspoken moments of everyday life. Tolstoy came to a profound realization. He had spent his life searching for something that could never be fully grasped by intellect alone. Meaning was not a concept to be unraveled, but a reality to be experienced. As he embraced this truth, the despair that had once consumed him began to fade, replaced by a quiet understanding. His transformation was not sudden, but deeply significant. He let go of the belief that individual achievements could bring lasting fulfillment. No longer did he see himself as a solitary being trying to construct meaning out of nothing. Instead, he recognized himself as part of a vast, interconnected existence, where true purpose was not self-created but naturally woven into the fabric of life. He shifted his perspective from personal ambition to service, love, and contribution. The relentless pursuit of status, recognition, and intellectual dominance that once defined him now seemed hollow. The more he examined the lives of ordinary people, the laborers, the farmers, the caretakers, the more he realized that meaning was not found in grand theories, but in the simplicity of being present. A farmer did not question the significance of his work. He simply tilled the soil. A mother did not analyze the purpose of love. She simply nurtured her child. Their wisdom was not derived from books, but from lived experience, from the quiet rhythms of daily life that gave existence its depth. Tolstoy chronicled this revelation in his confessional writings, detailing his crisis and the journey that led him out of it. He had once believed meaning had to be constructed by the mind, but he now saw that it had always been there, waiting to be recognized. Life, he concluded, was not a problem to be solved. It was an act of surrender. His perspective on existence changed, and so did his work. Where his earlier novels delved into human complexities, his later writings sought to strip life down to its essence. He became preoccupied with moral and spiritual questions, often clashing with religious authorities and the aristocracy as he championed simplicity, humility, and nonviolence. Rejecting the privileges of wealth and status, Tolstoy chose to live modestly, dressing like a peasant and giving away much of his estate. He no longer believed that institutions or governments could create a just world. Instead, he placed his faith in the power of individual integrity and compassion. His final years were marked by a radical commitment to the values he had once overlooked. The luxuries that had once defined him no longer held any meaning. In their place, he found a deep, abiding peace. He no longer feared death, for he no longer saw himself as separate from life itself. He had relinquished the illusion of control and embraced the truth that meaning is not something to be pursued. It is something to be lived in each moment. Tolstoy's journey speaks to the fundamental struggles of the human heart. In a world that insists meaning must be sought in success, status, and intellectual conquest, his story offers a counterpoint. It suggests that perhaps meaning is not something we must chase. Perhaps it is already present in the smallest, most ordinary moments, found in kindness, in love, in service, in simply being. His revelation was not the grand answer he had once expected. It was something far more profound, that life's meaning is not in what we think, but in how we live.